being able to look at the game tomorrow, Atlanta is a team you guys haven't faced in a while, so what are some of the things that...
This isn't just a sports story, this is a wake-up call. A brutal reminder of how ego, reckless leadership, and one catastrophic decision can destroy an entire empire before it even begins to rise. I've never seen an organization fumble greatness the way the WNBA botched Caitlin Clark. What could have been a golden era was instead tainted by chaos, drama, and negativity at every turn. The WNBA was handed a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, a golden ticket in the form of a generational superstar, Caitlin. Clark wasn't just another athlete filling up the stat sheet. She was a force, a cultural revolution, someone who didn't just play the game, but changed the landscape. She was a brand, a movement, a phenomenon who brought millions of new fans to women's basketball almost overnight. And somehow they let it slip through their fingers. For a league that spent nearly 30 years clawing for relevance. This was supposed to be their defining moment, their breakthrough, their long-awaited validation. This was the moment when women's basketball could finally stand shoulder-to-shoulder with the giants of sports. And yet, instead of embracing Caitlin Clark as the savior who could transform the game's future, they treated her like she was expendable. In doing so, they didn't just make a mistake, they unleashed a disaster so colossal it could cast a dark shadow over the league for decades. What started as a fairy tale rise has now mutated into a full-scale war. And Caitlin Clark isn't fighting back with loud rants, bitter tweets, or public meltdowns. No, she's striking back with something far deadlier: leverage. She's exposing the WNBA's incompetence in the one arena that truly matters, the boardroom. And here's the twist. The Sharks are already circling. Rival leagues, billionaire investors, and even powerful figures far beyond the world of sports. See what the WNBA has been to blind or to arrogant to admit. Caitlin Clark isn't just a star player. She's bigger than the league itself. So, how did it all fall apart? How did the WNBA take the most electrifying athlete in decades and mishandle her so badly that her rookie and sophomore seasons became a saga not of triumph, but of betrayal and bitterness? Stay with me, because once you see the numbers, the blatant disrespect, and the staggering offers pouring in from outside the league, you'll understand this wasn't just mismanagement. This was malpractice on a historic scale. This wasn't a simple screw-up. This was the kind of catastrophic blunder that rewrites the history books. When Caitlin Clark exploded onto the national stage, it didn't feel like just another one draft pick entering the league. It felt like a cultural earthquake, a turning point that could redefine women's sports in America. From the moment she lit up defenses in college, Clark wasn't just breaking records, she was reshaping the game's identity. Every game she played became a must-watch event. TV ratings soared, arenas sold out, and her highlights flooded social media, spreading like wildfire. Across the country, kids were hoisting logo-range threes, trying to mimic her style and swagger. She was far more than an athlete, she was a movement, a cultural icon. By the time draft night rolled around, her story wasn't just big, it was legendary. A once-in-a-generation phenomenon poised to change everything. This wasn't just the WNBA drafting another talented guard. This was a coronation. The moment the league had been waiting for its entire existence. Caitlin Clark wasn't just a player. She was lightning in a bottle, a singular force powerful enough to drag an entire sport into the mainstream. The impact was instant and seismic. Tickets for Indiana Fever games vanished within hours, and resale prices tripled overnight. Entire arenas were suddenly packed to the rafters, filled with fans, many of whom had never attended a WNBA game in their lives, showing up for one reason: Caitlin Clark. She wasn't just a star. She was instant box office gold. The ripple effect was unprecedented. TV ratings shattered records, with broadcasts featuring Clark blowing past anything the league had ever seen before. Attendance records crumbled, merchandise sales exploded, and even casual sports fans, people who hadn't cared about the WNBA for decades, were suddenly glued to every move she made. In just a matter of months, Caitlin Clark achieved what 20-plus years of slogans, rebrands, and marketing campaigns had failed to deliver. She didn't just raise the WNBA's profile, she made it relevant. This should have been the beginning of a golden age, a historic turning point for women's basketball. But what looked like a dream on the outside was quickly rotting on the inside. Because while Caitlin Clark gave the league everything they could have ever hoped for, the WNBA repaid her with a level of disrespect so deep, so unforgivable, that it will haunt them for generations. Instead of building her up, they undermined her, choosing ego over progress, and turned what should have been a fairy tale rise into a slow-motion disaster, a mistake so monumental it could define the league's legacy forever. We've been delivering results since 1997, back-to-back seasons. It's constantly pushing forward because this is a league where basketball matters. Beautiful pass, perfect catch, flawless finish. If you love real basketball, if you crave unforgettable moments, then welcome to the W now. Let's talk numbers, because they make this betrayal crystal clear. Caitlin Clark didn't just boost attendance for the Indiana Fever, she obliterated history. By the end of the season, the Fever had drawn over 200,000 fans through the turnstiles. That's not just impressive, it's earth-shattering. No other team had ever come close. 200,000 people in seats. That's not growth. That's a revolution. And it didn't stop there. National broadcast viewership surged by 21%. Think about that for a league that had spent decades begging for relevance. This wasn't just incremental progress, it was survival. Caitlin Clark became a walking economic engine. Every time she laced up, arenas overflowed, merchandise sold out, and TV numbers skyrocketed. She wasn't just a player, she was the heartbeat of the entire league. And here's the kicker. She did all of this as a rookie, barely scratching the surface of what she's capable of. Now pause for a moment and consider this: the WNBA has spent nearly 30 years chasing this exact breakthrough. They tried everything: slogans, rebrands, partnerships, desperate marketing pushes. Nothing worked. Then Caitlin Clark arrived, and suddenly, the impossible became reality. She was the difference between a league gasping for air and a league finally thriving. She was the goose laying golden eggs every single night. And yet, instead of cherishing her for the treasure she truly was, the league insulted her in the worst way imaginable with her paycheck. Here's the cold truth. Caitlin Clark's rookie contract was 4 years long, totaling just $338,000. Break it down, $85,000 a year. Let that sink in. $85,000. That's less than a middle manager at a tech startup makes. Less than many assistant coaches in men's basketball take home. And this wasn't just any player. This was the one woman single-handedly keeping the league alive. It wasn't just low pay. It was an insult carved into black and white numbers for the world to see. Now, compare that to the NBA. The #1 overall draft pick across the hall signs a rookie deal worth $55 million over 4 years. That's not a type of $55 million versus $338,000. That's not a gap, it's a canyon. Caitlin Clark wasn't simply underpaid, she was devalued. Do the math, she made 162 times less than her male counterpart. Not 10% less. Not half as much. 162 times less. That isn't just a wage gap, it's a statement. Loud and clear. It told the world, we don't value her. And once that level of disrespect went public, the ripple effect was devastating. Because when a league devalues its own star, it sends a dangerous message. It tells opponents she's fair game. She isn't special. She isn't protected. She's just another rookie. That's when the disrespect spilled off the contract page and onto the court. The WNBA had spent decades fighting for respect, trying to prove women's basketball deserved to be taken seriously. And then, in one stunning move, they trashed all that progress, letting the game devolve into something that felt more like junior high school locker room drama. Instead of focusing on pure basketball, jealousy took over. Players weren't just competing, they were scheming, targeting, and dragging the game down with petty antics. Almost immediately, Caitlin Clark had a bullseye on her back. Opponents saw the tiny paycheck, the lack of league protection, and the clear message from the front office, and they pounced. Game after game, Caitlin Clark was mauled. Hard hip checks, shoves while airborne, and sneaky off-ball hits, not to defend, but to punish her. To break her down mentally and physically, these weren't just fouls. They were calculated cheap shots, deliberate acts designed to test how much pain she could take before she cracked. This wasn't basketball. This was targeted warfare on the court. And what did the referees do? Absolutely nothing. They swallowed their whistles like they were allergic to blowing them. The WNBA front office, they looked the other way. They had no issue cashing in on her name selling out arenas, plastering her face on every promo, using her as the centerpiece of their marketing machine. But when it came time to protect their most valuable asset, the very investment saving their league, they shrugged and stayed silent. We have heard nothing from the WNBA. Absolutely nothing. Then came one of the ugliest moments yet. Brittany Griner elbowing Caitlin Clark in a vicious, unprovoked attack, followed by an apparent slur, calling her a trash white girl. And to this day, Brittany Griner hasn't commented, which speaks volumes. I've watched that video countless times, and it's impossible to ignore. It sure looks and sounds like Brittany Griner said, "White girl." The boiling point came during an ugly, unforgettable incident that still haunts fans to this day. Cameras appeared to capture Brittany Griner hurling a vile remark at Caitlin Clark mid-game. The clip spread like wildfire. Lip readers dissected it frame by frame, and fans were outraged. And yet, the league did nothing. No investigation. No suspension. Not even a fine. The message couldn't have been clearer. Caitlin Clark was on her own. That message was dangerous, because when referees refuse to protect, when the league refuses to punish, it gives every opponent permission to escalate. Every shove gets harder, every foul gets dirtier, every hit becomes more vicious. The WNBA sent its brightest star into battle without armor, and everyone knew it. There's only so much one body can endure. You can survive bad contracts. You can stomach disrespect. But when night after night turns into open season on your health, the outcome is inevitable. For Caitlin Clark, that breaking point came on September 5th, 2025. The news hit like a bombshell. She was ruled out for the rest of the season with a right groin injury. Headlines tried to frame it as bad luck, a tragic twist of fate. But let's be clear, this wasn't random chance. This wasn't a fluke. This was the bill coming due. Months of neglect, abuse, and silence finally cashed in, and the WNBA paid the ultimate price. Higher TV ratings, higher attendance figures, exploding merchandise sales. That didn't come from the league, it came from one player carrying the entire system on her back. And Caitlin Clark was that player. She was the engine driving the league's survival, the reason their bottom line was thriving. From day one, they should have recognized her value and maximized it, protecting her at all costs. But they didn't. Think back to everything she endured in just her first 2 seasons. The hip checks delivered with malicious intent, the sharp elbows buried in traffic, the hard shoves while airborne, the subtle but brutal off-ball shots to her ribs and hips. Game after game, the punishment piled up, and game after game, the referees stayed silent. While league executives hid behind closed doors saying nothing. You said. Her body finally broke, not because she was fragile, not because she couldn't handle the competition, but because the very system designed to protect her never did its job. This injury wasn't bad luck. It wasn't a random twist of fate. It was the inevitable result of pure negligence. And in that moment, the WNBA didn't just lose its brightest star. They exposed themselves. They revealed to the entire world that they were incapable of protecting the one person who had single-handedly saved them from irrelevance. But here's where the story takes a dramatic turn. As Caitlin Clark sat sidelined, rehabbing from pain the league had allowed to build up, powerful eyes were watching. Rival leagues, billionaire investors, visionary entrepreneurs. They saw the WNBA's golden goose battered and limping, abandoned by the very institution that had plastered her name on every ticket and jersey. And unlike the WNBA, these outsiders understood her worth. They weren't vultures circling for scraps, they were visionaries ready to build something bigger. The moment Caitlin Clark went down, the real power players began to move. They weren't waiting to scavenge, they were preparing to offer her everything the WNBA never would: respect, protection, and money that truly matched her value. Ironically, what seemed like Caitlin Clark's lowest point became the spark that ignited her greatest leverage. The WNBA thought they had her boxed in. They believed that rookie contract bound her, that they could underpay her, exploit her, and still force her to smile, lace up, and keep carrying their entire league on her back. But they were wrong. The injury changed everything. It didn't weaken Caitlin Clark, it exposed the WNBA. Suddenly, the balance of power shifted. Doors that had been locked for decades swung wide open. The first to make a move was unrivaled, a bold, upstart 3-on-3 league founded by Breena Stewart and Nafisa Collier, with Gino Orima deeply tied to its vision. Unlike the WNBA, Unrivaled didn't see Caitlin Clark as a cost to control. They saw her for what she truly is: the cornerstone of a new era. They put an offer on the table that made the entire sports world stop and take notice: over $1 million per year. Plus something even more powerful: an equity stake in the league itself. This wasn't just a paycheck. This was ownership, legacy, control. For the first time, Caitlin Clark wasn't being treated like just another draft pick, another name on a roster. She was being treated like a partner, someone with the power to shape the future of the game, not just dribble inside of it. And here's the thing: this wasn't about insulting or ignoring the contributions of other WNBA players. No one was dismissing their years of hard work. But the reality was undeniable. For decades, no matter how great the talent, most people didn't care. Fair or not, everything changed the moment Caitlin Clark arrived. And that offer from Unrivaled, that was already more respect than the WNBA had ever shown her since day one. The brilliance of Unrivaled's proposal wasn't just the money, it was the message. They weren't saying, "We'll pay you to play." They were saying, "We'll invest in you as the face of the future." That alone was enough to shake the entire basketball world to its core. It validated what fans had been screaming all season long. Caitlin Clark wasn't just another star, she was the league. And if the WNBA wouldn't treat her that way, someone else would. But that was only the appetizer. The main course came from the most unexpected source imaginably: cultural icon. A disruptor who had built an empire by breaking the rules. Just when it seemed like things couldn't get worse for the WNBA, they did, because Ice Cube entered the conversation. At first, people laughed it off. Whispers of Cube's Big3 League offering Caitlin Clark millions sounded like a tabloid fantasy. Some fans thought it was just posturing, a publicity stunt to grab headlines. But then, the numbers dropped. The official offer was $15 million. Not for 4 years. Not for an entire grueling WNBA season. Not even for 40 games. $15 million for one 10-week stretch of basketball. Pause and let that sink in. The WNBA locked Clark into a 4-year rookie deal worth just $338,000 total, barely $85,000 a year. And then Ice Cube walked in and said, "How about $15 million for 10 weeks? That's not a negotiation. That's a public shaming." It was like Cube stood on a rooftop with a bullhorn, screaming to the entire world. The WNBA has no idea what their most valuable asset is truly worth. This wasn't just about Clark's bank account. It was about optics, power, and exposure. The Big Three didn't just outbid the WNBA, they exposed it. Showing that a rapper turned businessman understood Caitlin Clark's value better than the very league built on her back. That $15 million figure didn't just surpass her paycheck, obliterated it. And overnight, the entire narrative flipped. The WNBA wasn't protecting Caitlin Clark. They weren't empowering her. They were undercutting her, using her image to print money while paying her pennies. And now, the receipts were out in the open for the whole world to see. This wasn't just a contract dispute. This was revenge written in dollar signs. Revenge against a league that thought it could bleed her dry while cashing in on her fame. In that moment, the power dynamic shifted forever. Caitlin Clark no longer needed the WNBA. But the WNBA, they couldn't survive without her. For months, league executives had been living in a dangerous fantasy. They believed Clark was trapped, locked into a rookie deal with nowhere to go. They couldn't have been more wrong. They thought they could take Caitlin Clark for granted, believing she had no other options. They figured she'd just smile, lace up her shoes, and keep carrying the league on her back. Then Ice Cube dropped the $15 million bombshell, and everything changed. That number wasn't just about money. It was a declaration of independence. A message to the world that Caitlin Clark's true value wasn't defined by the WNBA's limited vision. It validated everything fans had believed from day one, that Clark wasn't just a star. She was a phenomenon. She wasn't a six-figure player. She wasn't even a seven-figure player. She was an eight-figure superstar. And the most humiliating part for the WNBA, she reached that level without ever needing their approval. Think about the symbolism. The WNBA plastered Clark's face on every billboard, every commercial, and every ticket sale, marketing her as the face of the league's future. But when it came time to actually treat her like the superstar she was, they fell silent. Ice Cube didn't just offer her money, he validated her worth. He told the world, "You're not crazy for believing this woman is worth everything." He confirmed what everyone suspected. The WNBA had no idea how to handle its golden goose. And that validation, that external stamp of respect, is where the real revenge begins. Because the damage to the WNBA isn't about whether Caitlin Clark signs the deal tomorrow or next year. The damage is that the offer exists. It hangs over the league like a dark storm cloud. Every press conference, every boardroom meeting, every sponsor call, that number, $15 million, is sitting there in the room whether Commissioner Kathy Engelbert likes it or not. And with that single move, Caitlin Clark gained something no WNBA player had ever truly possessed before: leverage. Leverage to demand protection on the court. Leverage to demand real respect off the court. Leverage to negotiate not just a salary, but her role in shaping the entire future of women's basketball. And that right there is the WNBA's worst nightmare. Because once a player realizes she doesn't need the institution anymore, the institution loses all control. The WNBA can't put Caitlin Clark back in the box, not after Ice Cube broadcasted her true worth to the entire world through a megaphone. The league thought it owned Caitlin Clark. The truth? She now owns the future of the sport. This was never just about basketball. This was about vision, respect, and a league that held the keys to its own salvation and dropped them straight into the sewer. Caitlin Clark walked in as a once-in-a-generation gift, a ratings magnet, a ticket seller who packed arenas across the country, a jersey sales powerhouse who boosted merchandise numbers like never before. She gave them everything. And what did she get in return? A rookie deal that insulted her. Silence as referees swallowed their whistles while she took brutal hits. Indifference when opponents turned games into free-fall brawls. And absolute nothingness when ugly racial slurs echoed across the court. The WNBA didn't just undervalue her, they betrayed her. Now comes the price. Caitlin Clark's revenge isn't about throwing shade in interviews. It isn't about cryptic tweets or even dominating the stat sheet. Her revenge is leverage. It's rival leagues lining up with millions, offering ownership stakes, massive contracts. And most importantly, the respect she was denied from the very beginning. Ice Cube's $15 million bombshell didn't just shake the market. It flipped the balance of power on its head. The WNBA thought Caitlin Clark needed them. The truth is, they need her. And now, for the first time ever, a single player controls the fate of an entire league. So the question is simple.